Welcome to another edition of the Unpolished Stories, speaking beyond the spotlight. You know, speaking is seen as such a glitzy, glamorous career where we all stand up on stage and we're all together. But very often there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. And I love bringing this human element back in. You know, we've got to remember that we are humans first and speakers second. And that is part of our mission on this podcast, is to really tap into the human element behind our speakers, the stories beyond the spotlight, and find out that we're not alone. You know, sometimes we feel like we're not together, but we're not alone. That's the important thing. Celina, so good to be back here with you.
Nice to be back here for another conversation, and for our friends and colleagues in Virtual Speakers Association International and anyone who might be checking this out for the first time. We love sharing these conversations with them. Chantelle, we have another great guest with us today. I'm excited to hear these stories, as you say, beyond the spotlight, right? Yes.
Absolutely. And just on that note, if you're watching this or listening to this podcast and you have got some interesting beyond the spotlight stories to share, do reach out to us and let's schedule an episode. But Celina, why don't you introduce our guest today and let's get this show on the road.
Super. Well, we're going to start off with the intro, but we're going to dive deeper than that. And in part of our preparation for today, we also had an interesting conversation about names with 3 different accents on this podcast today, with all sorts of hearing abilities as well. And, you know, I think about just the importance and power of name. So it is my pleasure, and I'm gonna take first round at this, and then he's gonna tell us a story to go with it. Antoni Lacinai, right? And so I want to share with you a little bit about his background, and then invite the story about his name and the continued conversation. Antoni is a global keynote speaker, communication expert, and author of 14 books. I want to know some secrets there. Thank you. Known for making communication easy and helping leaders connect, collaborate, and lead with care. He brings a wealth of experience to this conversation and beyond each of his audiences in leadership and employee engagement. I think you'll pick up on his passion about bridging the gap between strategy and execution through effective communication. And we're going to look at some of the insights that he can share with us about his speaker journey and beyond. Welcome, Antoni.
Thank you so much, Celina and Chantelle. Do you want to know more about my name now?
Yeah, tell us the story. I'd love to start off with what you can share with us, because that, speaking of communication, right, and connection and engagement, I often will talk to my audiences about learning someone's name, and learning how to pronounce it is really important. Tell us a little more about your story.
Yeah, you know what, it turns out, according to Daniel Kahneman, if you read his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, that strange name evoke lower trust. So I'm on an uphill battle every time I speak in Sweden, if they don't know me already. I live in Sweden, and it's not a Swedish name, it's an Albanian name. So just by the fact that you have a strange name that is perhaps hard to pronounce, you are in a disadvantage immediately. So you need to figure out a way to make people feel that it's known again. So for people who have seen me before, perhaps on TV or on a keynote or something, then it's much easier. And it becomes easier because I have a unique name. Nobody in the world has that name. But up until that point, it's a problem. So what I often start off my keynotes with is that I say something around, well, Celina, thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. I have been called everything from lasagna to last night, or something like that. And then we make fun of that for a while. So it becomes an icebreaker. People lower the guards, and it's all good. We are, positive atmosphere is going on and so on. So that's my simple way of just breaking the ice when it comes to my name.
So, well, a great example for all of us to learn from. And, I think we all have different versions. I'm still working on Chantelle's last name. I just skip it now, right? Right. Between the accent and yet it's so important, right? And to the what you said in terms of just how we connect with people. And maybe some of those uphill battles that that we didn't know we were facing as speakers until we got into them and went, oh, I didn't know that was going to be an uphill battle. Would you share something with us as we get into this conversation, just about your journey of how everything can look good on the outside, but as maybe something you've struggled with as a speaker, some lessons learned about how it's not always the polish on the stage?
I mean, how much time do we have? There are so many stories to share when it comes to that. Well, one of them is not, well, I can take one on stage, if you will, and then one off stage in the preparations, and we have two different ones. The on stage, or actually this was a virtual event. I had been working like crazy. It was during the pandemic. I had so much to do because I wrote a book about virtual meetings, which put me in a really good spot for the whole situation with the pandemic. Everyone said, who knows anything? And then I had a book. By the way, I've written and co-written 14 books. That's the secret. If you write them all by yourself, it's a different story. Yeah.
But still.
but still, some of them is perhaps only a chapter. Some of them are written most of. But anyway, I wrote this book about virtual meetings. So I was super booked during the pandemic. And I was so tired. This was about this time of the year. This is recorded in May. So May a few years ago, really tired, had this pre-call. I always want to have a pre-call, a project meeting or something with the client. And they told me that they wanted to know how to engage more with their audience. They were therapists and psychiatrists and so on. And then they had these online sessions instead. And then she said something like, well, we never used the camera still. And that was enough for me. I decided at that moment that they were beginners. So I decided to put this on a really basic level. And that was it. I listened to one thing only, and then I took that one and I ran with it. I didn't listen to the rest. So when I had my presentation for them, my lecture, they came back really dissatisfied because I dumbed it down too much for them. So that they really didn't like my I would say, not my performance. There was nothing wrong with the performance. It was just a wrong presentation. It was a wrong lecture, the wrong keynote. I mean, I did a solid job talking about the wrong things.
Ouch.
Just because they said they didn't have their video on, I was thinking, okay, they don't know how to do this. I need to focus on the start. So that was a painful lesson. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and this was only a few years ago. Still, we learn, right? But it was so painful. They didn't have to pay, by the way. It was, and they were. Yeah, it wasn't a fun experience, so to say. Yeah. So listen. I mean, listen to understand the whole thing, not only bits and pieces, and then paraphrase. Ask them back. Did I get this right? Is this where you are? And so on. But no, I didn't do that. I was probably too tired at that point. Just wanted to have a summer break from where I live in the northern hemisphere.
Highlights something so interesting for me, Antoni. We've all got our areas of specialization, and very often it's like the old adage of the shoemaker's children go without shoes. Very often it is the area that we are expert in that we trip up in. And yours was a communication whoops. So
it's really, really hard to call yourself a communication expert, because really, who is? True. It's such a broad topic. And I mean, looking at some of our colleagues who are super nerdy when it comes to one thing. It could be the micro expression, it could be the voice, it could be the hand movements, it could be the word you choose, or it could be whatever. And now I'm calling myself a communication expert. It's almost ridiculous. It's humor. We have a colleague who only focuses on voice. It's so interesting because when he talks about things, he could look a bit dissociated, but then all of a sudden he comes back in and says, Antoni, people say that the eye is the mirror to the soul. They're wrong. It's the voice. And then he talks about the voice for 2 hours because he knows everything about the vocal cords and whatever you have when it comes to articulations and emphasis and so on. And I love it. It's so nerdy. I love it. I don't consider myself an expert on that level. I see myself more of a holistic human communication nerd, if you will, because I'm still nerdy when it comes to this.
I love that. So I'm going to dive into that nerdy component of yours, right? So as I've become a deeper subject matter expert on the stuff that I talk about, there's beliefs and ideas that I no longer hold that I used to hold in the beginning. So perhaps let's throw this open. Let's look at this nerdy component of yours. What is a belief about communication that you used to hold that you no longer hold?
One of them is the 7:38:55 ratio that so many not speakers, but communication experts talked about, especially before, I would say a few decades ago, when they said that only 7% is the content of your speech. 55% is your body language and 38% is your voice. These figures are not true. It comes from a study from a man called Morabian in 1971, if I remember correctly. And I think that he looked at things like, what was it? It was about, are you likable or not? Something like that. I can't remember the whole details now. And then people just took those numbers and said, now this is about presentation skills. And he has been trying to debunk that forever, but it doesn't work. It's like it's stuck. And I'm in my first book, I wrote about this. This was 2007 or something like that. And now, of course, I want that unwritten. I would say that it's true from a gravitational perspective. It gravitates toward nonverbal communication, how you look and how you sound. But it doesn't mean that it is 38% or that it is 55%. It's not true. So that's one of those things that it's absolutely not true anymore.
Wow.
It raises a great point as somebody who is working on that series of books, and Chantelle's got her first one coming out, and I already want to go back and change something, right? And I, it hasn't been that long, so it's neat to hear also that part of the journey, because we're not the same speaker we were on day one, and we're not supposed to be. I shouldn't be the same speaker I was last week that I am this week, and I have not put that around the context of research out there or debunking myths or things that we once believed. And it might say it differently on the stage, but it is different when we put it in print now and it's available out there. That leads me to think about value sets. And one of the things I'm most interested in is when we run into situations that now hits a deeper level, maybe against a value that we hold in this business. Is there anything you can speak to or share with us about a time where you felt conflicted because of a value set you held to a client or to a particular event, and how you worked through it?
You should know, who listens to this right now or watch this, that we haven't rehearsed those questions, but I do have stories about that as well. One of my also more painful memories is that I was speaking at an HR conference in Croatia, 500-600 HR people, and it went well. We had a good vibe going on. I was rocking the stage, and I got some gigs coming afterwards as well. One of them was an HR person saying, "Hey, I loved your speech. Can you come to us in Hungary?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you." I was so flattered. So we booked it on the spot, and then way later, I realized that I just accepted a gig from an oil company in Eastern Europe. And I don't want to work with companies who pollute the planet, unless, of course, they have some transformation going on to clean energy or something like that. I don't mind energy companies at all, utility companies, but it has to be a strategy for them to go towards clean, to sustainability. But my word is my bond. I had to deliver. I promised that I would. So we had a discussion. I said that I would like to talk to their sustainability officer as well, so I can have a chance to talk to them and ease my conscience, more or less. I never did, by the way, just to say that. They said, "Sure, why?" "Well, because it's important to me." And they said, "Fine." And then nothing happened. In the pre-call, I talked about the key of performance and the key of productivity being employee engagement. If you want people to be engaged, you have to communicate well with them. And if they are, they will perform better. They will collaborate better. Everything will be better. This is the chain: communication, engagement, performance, results. There you go. So if you want, to reach your plans, start with how you communicate. And what they said to me was, "Well, we already did this employee engagement thing." Now it's about getting shit done. And again, I was like, why did I accept it? Why didn't I do my due diligence? So I explained to them in my own words that, you know what, you get shit done when people are engaged. You can force them to do things. It works for a while until it doesn't. So if you want sustainable growth, sustainable results, then you have to make them engaged. So I did some changes, not on my core message. I didn't. I kept my core message, but I did some changes, gave some other examples and so on. And I performed, and it was well received. It was all good. I haven't come back to them ever since. One of the reasons is that they never came back to me with the contact of the sustainability guy. So you know, it's just like, I don't want to work with them anymore. It didn't feel good. I don't want to do it again. Again, I don't mind energy companies as long as they have a value that I can adhere to. I also have questions from Russian banks. I said no. Tobacco companies don't like it. Why should I help people get more lung cancer? Online casinos, I'm very hesitant to work with as well. But now we talk about the negativity, but it's really important for me to be clear on what I believe in and what I want to promote, because I see myself as a Sherpa, helping good companies and good people towards wherever mountain they have that they want to climb. So I want to put my time and energy to them, which means that if I can work with, for instance, company saving lives or making lives better for some, I'm all in. I'm going to be your champion. So, you know, at this point in my life, I do have the luxury of saying no. I have total respect for people who don't have the luxury because of, you know, money or putting food on the table, whatever. But it feels good to be able to say yes and no. So that was one of my stories when it comes to
Thank you
conflicting values, if you will.
And so important I love how you also honored, right, those who don't feel like they have it's more difficult to make that choice right now, to say no to some and not others. And then as they figure out their way of a closely held value and how does that fit, one of the phrases I've used over the years is, that's good work, it's just not my work. And that can be good work for somebody else, it's just not mine, because not every audience, right, is for each of us. And I think that's harder, especially for newer speakers, to struggle with. And reality is, we still have to, right, still paying bills. And what's our best way to do that? And I think a values check-in along the way is so important, to say, what can I do now? And where are my boundaries? Because boundaries can certainly evolve over time as we learn. Yeah, Chantelle, what would you add?
You know, I was just thinking how it's so interesting, as Antoni was sharing the story, how you knew that you shouldn't have kind of gone there. And then when you went there, the culture wasn't right. The culture wasn't you know, so it was almost like there was 2 layers of value transgressions, if you want to call it that. And again, I'm just going to come back to, that's why it's so important for us to have those values, you know, and to stop, but to equally learn when we don't.
And to ask the right questions in the beginning, so you know where you are.
Yes.
So, very
exactly.
much so.
Which I didn't do. Now, once I was on stage, I said to them, I understand your Eastern European way of leading. I mean, my parents are from this region. I get it. But what I'm talking about is deeply human. People want to feel appreciated and respected, regardless of where in the world you are. Mm-hmm. And since I am a global speaker, I do speak on most continents, this resonates with people everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it makes sense. And then, I mean, I can't do more than that. I can't, they have to transform themselves. They have to change themselves, but I can at least give them my view on it. So, yeah.
You know, all of this sharing of stories, it reminds me of how we structure our keynotes. We always bring our personal stories in. So just hearing about your journey, and I mean, I didn't know this stuff about you, and I think it's so fascinating. But what is another part of your journey that didn't make it into a keynote yet, but perhaps should have? What are you toying with, perhaps?
I'm toying with props. I have this idea when it comes to values about using a coffee filter. One clean and one used on stage, and talking about what goes through the filter and what stays. What don't you want to use? I mean, there's something about that I want to try, but I never have. Because you really don't want to have the crushed beans in the filter anymore. You don't want that. No. But you needed it to get to the nice coffee. I mean, I don't even drink coffee, but it's a good metaphor for something. So I'm toying with that one. I tried one thing that really didn't work at all. I tried this thing where I said, "Are you all clapping your hands with the same beat? Are you all in the same beat? Like do you work together?" And I said to them, I wanted to try it. I tried it I think it was in Lithuania or something like that. I said, just try, think of a song and then clap at your own beat, the song that you have. And then everybody started to do that. But it just sounded like an applause. There was nothing special with it, It was like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting. So then I tried to change that one. So I'm toying also with another thing, which is like, are you singing the same song? So now I'm getting people to sing their own national anthems if they are an international crowd, and it just sounds terrible because everyone sings their own, and then we have one song that we sing together. So this is something I'm working on right now to get that feeling of oneness. It hasn't necessarily been part of my repertoire fully yet, but I'm trying it out right now and see what happens.
That's what it's about, trial and error, right?
It is.
Yeah, the hand clap thing was awful. There was like, nobody understood it. I didn't even understand it. Once I listened to it, it was like, okay, now this did not work, So
I learned unless you did it, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I guess I should have anticipated it, but I didn't do it.
Well, and sometimes they start out in our mind way differently than what they actually come out as, right? We can imagine it one way. And I think it's good for all of us we need that trial and error. Right? We just all to be able to own that and go, yep, that did not work. Huh.
And then sometimes you catch something that you didn't even expect that you wanted to say. And it's like, oh, this really hit home. Yeah. I'm going to use that one again. And then you work on that material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd love to know a little bit more about what motivates you to keep going, why this work, why I would, with your travel, with the stages you're on, and what keeps you going with that, as well as beyond the spotlight, right? What keeps you going when it's not on a stage? What can you share with us about that for you?
I have a poster in my house. It says, do what you love what you do. Now, that's what I do. I love what I do, but I don't love everything I do. So there should be another line saying, and also why you do it, understand why you do it. To give you an example, I decided a few years ago, every year I've been traveling outside of my own country. It's part of what I've done. And before I started as a speaker or speaker trainer and so on, I was working in a global company. So this is part of the nature. But I decided like a few years ago that I'm going to go all global now. So Sweden, done. Closest country, done. Let's see if I can expand my horizon. While at the same time, I really don't like to travel. It's so interesting and it's so stupid. I don't like to. I get anxious when I'm running between gates or stations or things like that, and I have nightmares. Ever since I missed a flight, I have nightmares about missing flights or trains or buses or whatever. Half of the time it was my dad's fault. I don't know why. I need to do some psychoanalysis on that one. But it's just like this. Yeah, I get anxiety attacks almost of that, and still I do it. And I realized that I just do it because I know why I do it. It's to arrive. It's to meet people. So I didn't suffer much when it comes to that part of the pandemic, because I liked to do this online as well. At least I got something out of it. I mean, we still had that connection, and we can do things virtually that we cannot do on a live in-person stage. But that's really weird that I decided to do it anyway. In Sweden, we have this old tradition of Thursday lunches where we have pea soup and then pancake. Pea pea soup I don't like very much. I love pancakes. So I decided that traveling is the pea soup I eat in order to get to the pancakes. Now, in this conversation, you are the pancakes. Otherwise, it's the audience of whoever, how many people you have, and so on.
We'll be the
So that's
pancakes.
We'll be the pancakes. That's good.
I love the pancakes. You're the pancakes. Yes, yes, yes. What else is there when it comes to this? Why am I doing what I'm doing? I like it. I believe I have had a talent for it for a long time. I believe I'm developing in this talent, owning my skills, being better at it. I like the fact that I can make people be inspired to change things, hopefully for the better. I like the freedom that it gives me. I like that every gig, once it's a real paid gig, it's good money. So, I mean, I don't need to work perhaps as much or grind 9 to 5 every day. I mean, I do it anyway. I work more than that. If you look at but it's me. It's my own business. You all know that. Everyone who watches or listens to this knows this. It's your business. Of course, you're not completely free. You still have to get your, bookings and so on. But there's so much freedom around it. For instance, for me right now, it's 2:30 p.m. I decided, since it's a nice spring day, 13 degrees, which is good in Sweden. It's cold as hell, but it's good in Sweden. I'm going to take a few hours off and just practice my golf game today. I decided that I'm going to do that because I want to do it. I prepared my work for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to give a keynote, 90-minute thing for a real estate company. It's all done. I'm going to take some time off, and I can just do it. How can you do that if you work at the cashier, in a grocery store? And again, I'm not disrespecting it. It's just I don't have to. There's a freedom involved in it that I really love, and I also love this community. The fact that we're giving to each other so much. You are doing it all the time with this podcast and the whole association. It's just this enormously generous feeling that we have. And if you ever been to one of the events, the conventions like the Global Speaker Summit or any national, it's just hugs and love, and it's just nice. So all of that is good. And then you can always discuss how many other jobs do you have when you can get an applaud for just showing up. Isn't that pretty amazing?
This is true. Before you've even opened your mouth, right?
Yes.
Especially if the introduction is good. Sometimes you get a super bad introduction and then nothing happens, and it's like, okay, now we have to work a little bit harder. Yeah.
You know what I'm loving that I'm hearing, and again, it's this theme that we hear so often, Celina. It's about that authenticity. It's about honoring who you are. It's about being true to who you are, your values, what you want out of life. And there's so many people that I work with that say, I don't know what I want, right? And it's a journey to get there. I mean, none of us kind of grew up, left school, became speakers, and voila, it's a journey to get there. But I think there's such hope and such inspiration in sharing these stories.
I don't think I started off as a speaker, actually. When I started this business, this is 19 years for me now. It was more me being a speaker trainer and a moderator. So I was the MC. And then they started to ask me more and more to do lectures. And then I joined the National Speakers Association in Sweden. And then I was like, I'm so inspired to do more speaking. So that was 10 years ago when I decided to pivot and change my balance. So I don't do almost any moderation work anymore, but I do quite a lot of keynotes and lectures.
It's a great reminder for all of us. Yeah, in terms of how it evolves over time, that we can take on different parts of that or different specialties within that for time.
Oh yeah.
And just lean into the things that bring you joy. I mean, Celina, you know me, that's my message. Follow the pleasure, right? Follow the things that bring you joy. And so in so doing, they will amplify.
Yeah.
Antoni, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead into lightning round now. 2 short, sharp, quick questions off the top of your head. What is one question you wish that we had asked, but we haven't yet? What would the question be and how would you answer it?
Well, this is a time constraint thing. So I would say that one question could be, what are you doing successfully or unsuccessfully to become a global speaker, to be a global speaker? That could be one. The other one is, you never said about your crash and burns off stage. You only talked about the on stage thing. So pressure me
I
on
think
that
I want to hear
one.
the answer to that one.
You do? Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can make that into a short anecdote. I was visiting a global company. I wanted to sell my services to them. I talked to an HR person. We had such a good connection. And then he said that he would retire in 2 weeks. So he introduced me to his successor. This is a story about energy and how you have to adapt. I did not adapt. So when the successor came, he was completely different, but I didn't change my style. I was still with the first guy, very fast, funny. We had this all, but he didn't appreciate that at all. It was a super bad meeting that we had. So I never got any work from them. What I did after the meeting was that I called him up and I said, you know what, this was a really bad meeting. And he said, what? Yeah. It was my fault. I agree. It wasn't you. It was me. I didn't do this well. And he said, no, everything is fine. Of course it wasn't. No business coming out of that one because I could not adapt. And I banged my fist to my head saying, I train people in this.
Yes.
And I did this junior mistake. So from this day on, I would never work with that company, ever. And I would say again, it was my fault. That was the shortest version I can give you. But
I love it, and said well in fewer words. I love it. Good for all of us to be reminded of that. So if you could give one piece of advice to your younger speaker self, what would it be?
That would be to contradict, Chantelle, what you said about follow the joy, because that's what I've been doing throughout this 19-year career that I have so far. I would give myself an advice to be laser focused on one thing in the beginning and being known as the one for that one nerdy thing, and then expand from there. Because I decided from the beginning that I'm going to be a bumblebee. There's so many things, there's so many flowers I want to visit. There's so many things I want to do. So I decided to do, so many things. And I think it just diluted who I was. So I'm trying really hard now to just narrow it down. And then I have the other competencies as well. But I don't talk about it so much. As I said with the whole MC thing, it's not even on my webpage anymore. It's gone. Even though I'm a bloody good MC, I don't want to talk about it because I want to be more focused on what my subject matter is, my expertise in that area. So I would probably say narrow it down. Yes, find something that is fun,
Sure,
but keep at it. There's so many other things that are fun too. Wait with them. Take it easy. And I was like all over the place in the beginning.
And to expand on that, I was speaking with a South African speaker last week, and he said to me, Chantelle, the positioning is what we communicate to the world. It doesn't mean we can't do that other stuff. So like the MCing, for instance, you may well get calls for MCing, but your positioning, your marketing is laser focused. And
exactly what I mean.
We've really got to hone in on that clarity in terms of this is who I am, this is the problem I solve. The rest of the stuff, we're all multifaceted. The rest of the stuff will happen if it happens, but focusing on that one thing.
Yeah.
And again, calling yourself a communication expert and still have problem with these things, it's humor. It's strange.
You and I share some similarities in that area and the type of work we do with companies. So I completely soaked that in today because I hear you. I hear you.
There's one thing more I want to add when it comes to what I could give myself as an advice. I hope we have time. Otherwise, we could cut it off.
We're good.
Every November, I was looking really stressed out and anxious about the next coming year, the next semester, and thinking, oh, there's so little things going on over there. Will I survive? And then I did, and it was all good. And then come April, May, and I was thinking after August, what will happen? Oh, it's so empty on that side. And I went on for like 10 years doing this thing until my wife said, can you stop now? Can you stop worrying? Can you realize that it works out? And I said, yeah, I'll try. But it's, take, trust yourself. I think it's one of the other ones.
That's well said. Great one to bring us all together. Chantelle, how do you want to wrap this amazing conversation up? Every time we go, what's this going to be like? And every single time we go, oh, I can't imagine not having had that opportunity and conversation.
Exactly. And I think you and I are the most blessed because we get it right from the horse's mouth, right? As it were. Celina, you know me, I'm always looking for a theme throughout our conversations. And today, the theme, we might even call this episode the Shoemaker. That is the theme. The theme is our subject matter expertise is the one thing, it's almost our blind spot. I talk a lot about shadow work as well. It can almost be part of our shadow. And so many of Antoni's stories have been related to communication, which is your subject matter expertise. You almost should know better. And I'm not lecturing you because I do this all the time in my own life. And I think it's just a reminder for all of us to go back, go within, right? And like you so rightly said, to sum it all up, trust yourself. Back yourself, know yourself, trust yourself, but check yourself.
Well
we wouldn't be around if we didn't do something good as well, even though we talk about the raw failures right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your investment of time with us and trusting us to have this conversation today with you and to share it out within our communities. We hope that with this particular podcast series through Virtual Speakers Association International, that we can help reassure some other people along the way and encourage them to tell their stories. Because as you noted, right, such a giving profession and industry, and it is that generosity that just continues to multiply. So thank you both for doing this today together, and we'll wrap it up. On behalf of Virtual Speakers Association International, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for future conversations, or go check out some of those past ones that are up on our socials and YouTube as well, because those conversations are just as rich, even if they were previously recorded. Oh, there's really good nuggets in there. So thank you all. Take care and be well.